Let me just start with something here.
My philosophy is I'm not afraid of death.
Turn that up a little bit.
What scares hell out of me is how I gotta live.
Once you've been in combat with people, you have a affinity for life with those
Can you
people.
hear that okay?
It never goes away.
One day we sent out 34 planes, only 5 of them returned. There were 5 men on each plane. That's why I haven't talked about it. This is the first time I've ever talked about it.
There's only a few of them left. The ones that are alive, I have a very strong bond with them.
Back in January of 2010, when we announced that we were going to launch Operation Resolve, that we were going to try to get as many World War II veterans as possible to visit their memorial in Washington, D.C.
We fly World War II veterans to see their memorial at no cost to them.
Like I won the lottery.
And there was a real sense of urgency about that because the clock was running. This community came together in one of the most extraordinary things that I have ever been part of, whether it was church groups or civics groups or veterans groups, kids groups, schools, raise the money to get as many World War II veterans as possible to visit their memorial in Washington, D.C.
I feel like a king.
The honor flight is by far the most rewarding thing I've ever been a part of. It's absolutely incredible. As she mentioned, that is my grandfather here. This is on our first flight, and I was finally able to take Grandpa out there, and it meant a lot to me. And this is one of the quotes on the National World War II Memorial: "Our debt to the heroic men and women and valiant women in the service of our country can never be repaid. They have earned our undying gratitude. America will never forget their sacrifices." And that was a special moment, but it's not about me. It's just a good picture. It kind of says what we do, which is to fly our Who's Your Heroes to Washington, D.C., completely free of charge. Out of all the wars out there, World War II is arguably the most significant of our time. They saved the world. You know, Pearl Harbor, we had the Japanese on one side, the Germans on the other side. These men and women literally went off and saved the world. So what we do is recognize them for their sacrifices by transporting them to Washington, D.C. for an all-expense paid, one-day, same-day trip to go and see the memorial. Top priority is given to the seniors, the World War II veteran survivors, as well as those that might be terminally ill. In the winter of 2004, the World War II Memorial was finally opened, and it had been 59 years since the close of the war, World War II, leaving the youngest veteran at that point 76 years old. Today, they're about 85 years old. As she mentioned, the average age that we fly is 90. So you can imagine dealing with airports, buses, taxis. Who's been to Washington, D.C.? It's a very busy place, right? It would be very hard for most people to get around without a tour guide, much less a 90-year-old man or woman to go and see their memorial that they fought so hard for 70 years ago. The youngest is 85 today, and they're not able to make the trip due to financial and or physical difficulties. It's expensive to go. It's difficult to go. Just getting through the airport, connecting flights and everything, it's tough to stay in hotels. A lot of them can't stay in hotels. just for different health reasons and different problems that they may have. So it's very hard for them to go and see this memorial that means so much. They literally saved the world. We said thank you. Our country said thank you, which, by the way, that memorial was primarily funded by the World War II veterans themselves, which that doesn't sit well with me either. But we built the memorial, and it took so long to do it that most of them can't go to see it, is the bottom line. They can't go and visit that memorial to get the closure that they needed unless someone steps in to help. The Honor Flight Network is our way of saying thank you. A tour of honor, a safe, rewarding day. It's a same-day trip. Each veteran we fly is paired up with what we call a guardian, and their job is to assist that veteran, that hero, however they need it. It's pushing a wheelchair, it's opening a bottle of water, it's making sure they get back on the bus on time, take their medication, don't fall off getting on or off the bus, don't get lost in the airport, whatever it is that they need. You're all encouraged to submit an application. I can tell you we've got a long waiting list of people that want to do that. The same reason I wanted to do it, I couldn't take my grandfather, so I took somebody else. I did the next best thing. I borrowed somebody else's grandfather. And I got the closure that I needed, as did that veteran. And it meant a lot to both of us. So it was founded in 2005. The memorial was open in 2004. The next year, they founded this little network because there was a lot of people across the country that had the same idea. Okay, we are one of over 100 hubs doing this across the country. Okay, so it's not a unique idea for me or anybody else. It's the right thing to do. There's a lot of Americans that feel as I do, and we've got a little background in logistics and fundraising and so forth, and we just put this together. So now there's over 100 hubs, over 35 states. Collectively, as of last year, they've transported over 100,000 World War II veterans to Washington completely free of charge. And when you think about that, 100,000, that's a lot of people. It's an amazing feat that they were able to raise that much money and do that. So this is Uncle Marvin. Uncle Marvin is was my wife's great uncle. We lost him about a year after the flight. Like I said, I couldn't take my grandfather, but I wanted to take him so bad. My wife popped up and said, well, I got a great uncle that served in the Battle of the Falls. Maybe you can bring him. And it took me over a month to convince this guy that I could take care of, because I didn't know him at all. And it was just an idea. I didn't know anything about the Honor Flight Network. Just like the founder of the network and a lot of other people, we just wanted to do something to say thank you. He had pneumonia. He was in a wheelchair, obviously. He was legally blind, and he couldn't hear, couldn't walk, very soft-spoken, so I had to be his arms, his legs, his eyes, his ears, his hands. We went, the two of us stayed 2 nights in D.C., and it absolutely changed my life. And this picture kind of sums it up. I took that picture, and as soon as I did, I realized it was a special picture, because you think, well, what is he thinking there? You know, he couldn't see or hear or walk, but he knew exactly where he was and why we were there that day. Without a doubt, you can just tell that look he had on his face. He was in the Battle of the Bulge, as I mentioned. He was in a little Sherman tank that got hit by a Panzer tank, one of the German tanks. The other 2 men in the tank did not survive, and he barely got out alive. So when we were there, closure was, I'm sure, one of the things, and saying goodbye to those guys that he served with was one of the things. And to be there, fly on the wall, and to watch. There were times where I'd park him like this, by himself, and just kind of back away with my camera and just leave him there all by himself, and I'd watch people like you in the room come up and give him hugs and say thank you and talk to him. And I realized, you know, there's a lot of people that feel like I do. They want to say thank you to that generation. You know, our parents, and I'm going to guess that most of you in the room had a father, grandfather, somebody that served, and that's why you're here. That it strikes a chord with you, and you think, you know, I want to get involved in this, and I encourage you to do so, because I couldn't take my grandfather, but I took Uncle Marvin. And it meant a lot to me, and it's just an incredible thing. So my grandfather was on the other side. He was a Marine in the Pacific Theater, fought in Iwo Jima, actually took a bayonet to the face and a bullet in the arm, and got a Purple Heart as a result. Ended the war in Pearl Harbor in a naval hospital. Came home after the war had ended. There was no fanfare, nothing else. Took all these memories, all these things, put them in a box, and just never talked about it. Put it down in the basement somewhere, and that was that. Grandpa was a hero, but we never talked about it. And we lost him. He was in California. I'm here in Indiana. Never really had a chance to talk to him too much about it. And as I grow a little older, suddenly this stuff means more to me. I want to know, you know, what did Grandpa do? And because I couldn't take him, I took Marvin, and it really changed my life. I spent the next year trying to find another old guy, find some other old guy I could take out there. And so I'm asking all my friends and family, does anybody know a World War II veteran I can take? I've got some airline miles, see, so I can take somebody out there free of charge, and wanted to do so. And oddly enough, I couldn't find a stranger to trust me with their grandfather. So I can understand why. I was actually soliciting some of the retirement communities and saying, it's no strings attached. I'll bring them home even after we're done. I won't leave them there, I promise. But I found out about the Honor Flight Network, and I called to say, well, this is great. I want to be a guardian. I've read about what you do on the internet. I went to honorflight.org, found out what you do. I want to be a guardian. And they said, we don't have anything in Indianapolis except a waiting list of about 50 guys. And immediately in my head, I thought, okay, there's a lot of logistics, a lot of planning, a lot of fundraising, and a big parade. And I said, well, okay, let's do this. What do we need to do? And he said, well, before you commit, you can kiss your hobbies and your free time goodbye. He said, but I will tell you it'd be the best thing you've ever done in your life. And he was right on both counts. I've not had a lot of time since, but it is the most rewarding thing. It took about a year to get the first flight up. We did that in 2012. We took 2 flights in 2013. We just flew in April and May, and we have 4 flights coming up this fall. One of them leaving from Evansville October 25th. So if nothing else, you join us at the airport when we come back that night, October 25th, about 8:30 p.m. There's going to be 70 World War II men and women. There's going to be 6 ladies flying with us on the 25th. They're going to be marching back into the airport, and it's your job to be there and clap as they come back in and welcome them home, because again, after all they did was save the world. So that's the state of Indiana. There's other hubs. Chicago has a hub. Lafayette has a hub. Fort Wayne has a hub, and this is us, Indianapolis. So to do some research, I joined Lafayette on their very first flight in 2012. A month later, I went with Fort Wayne on trip number 7. The next month, I went with Chicago on trip number 39. They've flown a lot of World War II vets out of Chicago. They're probably the biggest, most active hub across the country. And then on September 10th, we took our first flight, which we actually carried 80 World War II veterans. We've made several flights since, and as a result of that, when working with the other hubs across the state, it looks a little different. Instead of this, and that was our original footprint, this green area, we had about 12 counties around Marion County, central Indiana. And once we got on the map and people knew what we did, I said, there's no reason that people from Vandenberg County or Terre Haute or Vincennes or anywhere can't go on this flight. If they can get here, we'll take them. So I work with the other hubs, and we got the whole state covered now. So if there's a veteran within the state of Indiana that wants to go, they're going to go. We get them there somehow or another. Again, October 25th, what we've been doing is having the veterans from this area down around Evansville drive all the way up to Indianapolis. And that's tough. It's 3 hours. They've got to stay in a hotel at least a couple of nights. And that is bookending a very long day to begin with in Washington, D.C. So it was too much to ask of them. That's what we've been doing. We have veterans on each flight. They'll drive up and they join us in D.C., or in Indianapolis for the day in D.C. But I'm sure that there's been some that say it's just too much. So what we've done is we boxed up what we do in Indy and brought it to Evansville so they don't have to drive all the way up there. And sure enough, they've come pouring in. The applications have poured in, and they're lining up, and we're gonna take them in October. So the whole state is covered, which is great. So what is an average flight like? I refer to it as organized chaos. The day of the flight, we run on schedule, but it's just go, go, go. It's like herding cats. I tell people, I said, imagine a one-day field trip with 90-year-old Humpty Dumptys. I said, that's kind of what it's like. Because if they fall, Lord knows they're going to break. And if they break, we don't bring them home. So it's very scary, So we train. It's all about safety. We have medical personnel on board each bus. All the guardians get trained. We have people at the base of the stairs and so forth. But we gather for dinner prior to the flight, the night before the flight, and we kind of go over what the day is going to be. And if nothing else, the main thing that does is it eases the minds of the spouses and the families, because after all, Dad's 96 years old. He's been in a retirement home for the last 3 years. You know the routine, right? They eat dinner at 4 o'clock and they're in bed by 7. And here we come We're going to put them on an airplane, trains, cars, automobiles, buses, fly them around, do all these different things, and they're scared. Dad can't do that. Well, Dad wants to do it, and sorry, we're going to take him. You know, we're gonna bring him. Unless you tell us a real good reason he can't go, we can take good care of him. We've got these guys that are in wheelchairs, they're on oxygen, they've got medications they take. We can handle all that stuff. You know, there's a few criteria that might disqualify somebody. You know, severe dementia would be one. If we're standing in D.C. and they don't know that they're in D.C., you kind of wonder, well, why are we taking them? And that's the reality of when you get to that age. But for the most part, 99% of the guys that sign up, we're going to take. If they want to go, we bring them out there because they've earned this. So as you can see, it's a fairly busy day. Safety, as I mentioned, the overriding factor. We remind the veterans that there's bathrooms everywhere all day because that's a big concern, especially when we're pushing liquids on them all day too. So you got to hydrate, you got to stay hydrated because we're really worried about that. You know, take your medicine, here's some Gatorade, here's some water. And at that age, so many of them are worried. It's like, well, I can't be more than 10 feet from a bathroom. Well, that's okay. There's bathrooms around us all day. That there's medical people with us. There's wheelchairs with us, the guardians. We give them all the food they complain that we feed them too much. You know, we give them all the drinks. We take pictures for them all day long. We actually give them a book after the flight is over, a little keepsake photo book of the day and of the whole experience. So what do we see when we're there? We go to the World War II Memorial, of course. We depart about 8 a.m., about 10:30 a.m. We're standing there looking at the World War II Memorial. It's not that far from Evansville. It's about a 2-hour flight, maybe a little less. Of course, it's absolutely beautiful. It's positioned between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument and our National Mall and our nation's capital. An apt place, as it should be. It's a very significant thing. And when they see that, they realize, hey, this is big. It means something. It's going to be here forever. And I mattered. What me and my buddies did back then, it mattered. And we're appreciated. And they feel that. And they know that they'll never be forgotten. So the Atlantic is on one side. And they've got inscriptions across here. You know, inscriptions about D-Day. Different battles around here. It's very beautiful. These large pillars around it represent all the 50 states and the territories as they were part of the Union. So they're all marked. The other side, basically the same thing, except on the Pacific there. You got to remember, this is a world war. We had them coming from both sides. So the guys that were there, you know, they might go to the Pacific side and they might see Luzon or Iwo Jima, Okinawa, etched in stone, Okinawa, and they realize, hey, that's going to be there forever. It really means something. So a lot of the guys, you know, just a quick story. One of the veterans was there. He was in a wheelchair, and he was blind. Another one that was blind, he couldn't see. And I leaned down and checked on him. I said, how you doing? He said, I'm good. And he said, I hear it said, somewhere here it says Saipan. And I said, yeah, that's right there at stone. He goes, well, where is it? And I said, well, it's right here. And I kind of point, not knowing at that point that he couldn't see at all. And he said, well, can you show me where? And I said, yeah. And I wheeled him over, and I said, right here. And I put his hand on the stone next to this thing. He's in his wheelchair, put his hand on the stone, and he said, I don't feel it. And I rolled him back a little bit, and then he could feel the letters. And he traced the letters with his fingers and just started to cry. And it was tough. He said, I want to sit here. I said, is there anything I can do for you? He said, I want to sit right here. And it was tough. That's the kind, excuse me, but chokes me up. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but it is an incredibly emotional thing. And you can only imagine to be there with these guys. Normally I'm smiling. I have a great time. I'm not normally tearing up. So you see a lot of smiles throughout the day. A lot of smiles. These guys line up in front of the Indiana monolith there. They take their pictures. We bring a little wreath. You know, we have a little ceremony. We take the group picture. I passed out. You've all got a copy of that, the big group picture. So they're just happy as can be. Our last flight was real interesting. There was actually our reunion. We just had this past weekend in Indianapolis. All the guys that have ever flown with us, we have an annual reunion around VJ Day. And they all come back together at the Indiana War Memorial, downtown Indy. There were 3 guys, believe it or not, they bump into each other at this reunion. They'd all flown on 3 different flights over the last 2 years. They all went to grade school together and hadn't seen each other since. And they bump into each other at this honor flight reunion, having all flown together, not high school, grade school. And then they all went off and fought in the war, And this little common tie that they had brought them together with honor flight, and they bump into each other there, and it was pretty neat. So I put them on the news that same day. I found out somebody told me this happened. I immediately brought them in and put the cameras in front of them. A couple of TV stations were there, and it's pretty special. But a lot of smiles, a lot of smiles. This is not the man I was talking about, but this is similar. So he was reaching down, touching these letters across here. It's one of 1,000 experiences, 1,000 moments in time that I'll never forget, to be there when he did that. A lot of friendships, you see. Here's one of our guardians and one of our veterans. About half of the guardians are family members. So there's someone, a son or a daughter, grandson, granddaughter, that wants to honor their loved one. The rest are strangers like us in the room that we couldn't take our loved ones. So again, we do the next best thing. We borrow somebody else's, and we go with them. So that's Carol and Jack here, and they're lifelong friends. Her father passed away years ago, so she kind of adopted Jack here, and they go out to dinner or lunch about once a month, and they're still good friends today. After the World War II Memorial, we visit the Korean Memorial, which a lot of the guys, you got to remember, went on to serve in the Korean conflict as well, because it wasn't much after World War II we were involved in Korea. If you've never seen that, it's a very dramatic, very eerie memorial. It's a much different feel, but that war was a much different war, of course. Then we can see the Vietnam Memorial. And you got to keep in mind that these are all close to each other. So it's one stop, and they can kind of walk around. Again, we've got 70 guardians, 70 veterans, and 70 wheelchairs. We don't make them sit in a wheelchair, but if they want to see all three of these particular stops, wheelchairs are better because they're a little faster. They can get to all three of them. A lot of these guys had sons that had served in Vietnam. Some of them have sons that served in Vietnam and did not come home. I've watched the guys tearfully etch the names of their own children on this wall here. So it's more than just the World War II Memorial. It's a very emotional, very touching day. So the Korean, the Vietnam, and the Lincoln Memorial are all very close. Here's Mr. Jessen Doyle. You see again a lot of smiles, a lot of disbelief. And how did you guys do this? How did you get people? How was there 500 people at the D.C. Reagan Airport to cheer and greet us when we got there? There was a band playing. There's swing dancers in the airport welcoming us to Washington, D.C. How did you do that? And I just tell them, you ain't seen nothing yet. Keep going. And they go about their way, but they love it. They're just so happy to be there. It's a lifelong dream for so many of them that they never thought they'd get to go and see it. 90 years old, they thought, by the time you guys built us that memorial, I'm too old to go and see it. And here we come with loving care. We bring them out there and honor them, and it just blows them away. They love it. The Lincoln Memorial, of course. Keep in mind, some of these guys have never been to Washington, D.C. Several have never flown on an airplane at all. That's one of the hard parts. I had to talk guys into going with us. Like, I've never been on a plane in my life. I'm not about to now. And I said, well, then, it's not called Honor Bus. It's called Honor Flight. If you want to come, you're going to have to get on the plane, but it'll be okay. I said, it's not like the old planes. I said, you're going to be so busy you won't even know you're flying. Of course, the Washington Monument. So this is on the other side of the World War II Memorial, looking over it. It is so big, I really can't get it in one picture. It's just an incredible memorial there. We end the day, the last stop, there's just 3 stops. World War II Memorial. The second one is the Korean, Vietnam, and the Lincoln Memorial. The last stop of the day is Arlington National Cemetery. We'll watch the changing of the guard, and then we lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, and that helps to bring closure to the over 400,000 Americans that did not come home from World War II. A lot of the guys lost friends that they knew, buddies. So as you can see, these are our guys in tan shirts. The veterans are in tan shirts. They line up in the front. The guardians, color-coded in blue behind them, stand behind them, and they got a front row seat. We lay a wreath there at the Tomb of the Unknowns. Again, very special place, very special moment. So far, as she mentioned, we've brought over 350 out of Indianapolis. And again, the network collectively has brought 100,000. So we're fairly new in the game here. We're just getting going. But we've not needed anything more than a Band-Aid so far. That's because we train. We insist that we train well. We bring medics like crazy. Our October flight, our second flight of the fall, for example, we've got 70 Guardian spots. 65 of them are EMTs. They're all firemen from Indianapolis Fire Department. And I talked to the fire department. I said, you guys are great, because who works more with seniors than anybody? Not the doctors and nurses. Every time somebody falls, if you work in this industry, you know when something happens in a retirement community, you call 911, who shows up? A fireman. You know, most of what they do is not putting out fires. It's going to help the elderly in situations that we might encounter. So we bring plenty of help. We stack the deck heavy with professionals that are able to care for these guys. And of course, half the firemen are veterans themselves, so they understand and they can appreciate the bond in what we're doing. They really appreciate it. And with your help, we'll bring more. We just need to get the message out there. I'm not here asking for money. I would gladly take it. But just to get the message out there. I don't know where you're from, but there's hubs, like I mentioned, all across the country. There's lots of different hubs doing this. October 25th, we're going to fly out of Evansville. We leave that morning. That evening, you can come back and join us at the airport as we welcome these guys home. You know, bring the whole family, fill up a car, bring a flag, wave a flag, and tell them, good job. You guys saved the world. Thank you. And welcome them home. You got to remember, at the end of the war, they were not here. You know, they were still in occupied territories. They were in the Philippines. They were in Germany and France rebuilding for months. Anybody seen Band of Brothers? I imagine. They had to get points to go home. You know, some guys came home right away. Most of them didn't come home until several months after the war was over. 16 million Americans went off and served in World War II. And by the time those last guys came home in California, San Francisco, and New York, the harbors where they're coming back on ships, they started out, there's a lot of fanfare. There's thousands of people there to greet the first ships as they came back with their boys. And they were celebrating. Yay, welcome home. And they had parades. 6 months later, there might have been one guy waving a flag. And that was it. I talked to most of the guys, and they said, you know, when I got out, they said they gave us about $100 cash and a train ticket. I had to take a train from California to Chicago. Then I got on a bus, took the bus from Chicago down to Evansville. And then I had to hitchhike the rest of the way over to wherever, over to Newburgh. And that was it. They snuck in the back door. They got a handshake from Dad. They got a hug from Mom. She might have cried a little bit and said, welcome home. And then we're told, hey, we're in a depression. You know, grab a rake, let's get to work. We got to get busy. And that was it. And they never had any kind of a celebration. There was no homecoming, no ticker tape parade or a kiss in Times Square. So one of the things we try to do is emulate that welcome home celebration. At the end of this incredible day, the last thing that they see is all of us waving flags, and cheering, clapping, and say, welcome home. So you would all be encouraged to come out and join us there. There's a quote that we use that says, we can't all be heroes. Some of us have to stand on the curb and clap as they go by Roy Rogers. And that's very true. So we invite you to come stand on the curb with us when we come back home.
What time will that be?
What's that?
What time?
About 8 o'clock is when you would want to be at the airport. October 25th at 8 o'clock. We should be pulling in. The first veteran will be marching in about 8:30. We expect over 1,000 people there. So just as a point of reference on what a big deal this is, the last flight we did out of Indianapolis, the day before, Mayor Ballard was there. Mayor of Indianapolis, of course. He's there speaking to the guys, the troops. While we're in D.C., they all meet Senator Bob Dole. He was there shaking hands and talking to our veterans. It's an incredible day. We get back to Indianapolis that night at the airport. There's over 4,000 people there. And Governor Pence was there, shook the hand of every single one of the veterans on the flight. So it's a big deal. You know, it's a major thing. Not all hubs are quite as organized or have quite as much fanfare perhaps, but it's no less a special time regardless if they fly out of Louisville or St. Louis or Evansville or Indianapolis. We want to welcome them home the best that we know how. So you get the word out there and you tell people, hey, this is pretty neat. You know, and I tell the veterans, I call them heroes all the time, and a lot of them will stop me and they always give me the same line, and I can appreciate and understand and say, I'm not a hero. The guys that didn't come home, they're the heroes. And my answer to that, I counter back. I say, well, but my kids, they need to know what heroes are. I said, you know, heroes don't throw footballs, and they don't drive race cars, and they certainly don't wear capes. You know, I said, you guys are the heroes. And if I can't call you heroes, then who do my children look up to? And then that they kind of get. And I said, so shut up and let us call you a hero today, because you are. And then they finally nod, okay, that makes sense. I can appreciate that. And it's just, it's an incredible experience. So if nothing else, you come out and join us there on the curb and clap as they go by. You know, bring the kids, bring your neighbors, bring anybody and everybody. The flyers we've got set out here have our website information on them. So you can go there on the back of this one, on this little 8x10 here is a picture of the memorial. It's kind of the before and after. Before, when we're there, we have a picture of each one of our guys. They hold it up and it's quite a scene. We stop traffic, literally stop traffic on the road when they see this. We're the only group that does that. And there's cars that start backing up to get a picture. People are driving by and they just can't believe what they're seeing, so they take a picture from out of the window. And the police are there keeping the traffic moving. But our website is listed right there. On there is information all about it. Okay, now we're out of Indianapolis. If you're from a different spot or from Evansville, if you go to indianahonorflight.org/EVV for Evansville, you can find out about the Evansville flight, the information on there. Two of the things that we can have everyone get involved in. The first was the homecoming that I mentioned. The second is what we call Operation Mail Call. And that's a very special thing. Now, both of these we keep secret from our veterans. We don't want them to find out that there's going to be a big parade waiting for them when they get back. Or that at 30,000 feet on the flight back, I grabbed the PA on the airplane and I announced mail call that they haven't heard for probably 70 years. And what we do there is, unbeknownst to them, we solicit letters from friends and family, neighbors, church friends, anybody and everybody, kids from schools, us in the room today, to say thank you, good job. So at 30,000 feet, I yell out their names and I yell mail call. We pass back these big envelopes full of these letters. And that's something that everybody can participate in. You write a letter to say thank you. If I couldn't write one to my grandfather to say thank you, I write one to a stranger and I say, dear veteran, thank you for what you did. You know, and I get something out of it. Of course, the veterans do too. And as I'm flying back, I'm not the pilot. As I say, I'm up in the front with a PA system, kind of herding all the cats, basically. And we've got a lot of volunteers. There's a whole army of people that make this possible. But as I'm up in the front, I look back, and here's these larger-than-life guys, 90 years old, and ladies, larger than life. They're war heroes. They're these great American people. And I look back, and half of them are just bawling like babies because they're reading letters from their son or their grandson. Kids that go to the school down the road, they get a letter from every person that they go to church with saying thank you. You know, you mattered, and we'll never forget what you did. It strikes home with them, and it chokes them up a little bit. And we are putting the period on the last sentence of the last paragraph of an incredible life. You know, you've seen incredible things to live 90 years. You know, the things that you've seen, to go through World War II, you know, saving the world, and to see all the advancements in technology and mankind since, you know, it's just an incredible life. And they go full circle. They start out life as an 18-year-old that signs up and they go fight for their country. They live another 70 years, kind of forget all about it. Most of them aren't real active in the veteran community. Most of them just go about their life. But then we come around and we stir some emotions, and it's really funny. When they start out, they're these old feeble guys in the wheelchair. By the end of the day, I'm having to slow them down because they're jumping up and ready to go because they're feeling 18 again. It brings back all these emotions. So it's an incredible day. I've got one more little clip here that I'll play. I've got the time. Yep, I do have a few more minutes here. Oops. That one.
Part of the honor flight is to go back to them and say, do you have any idea?
Wish it was a little louder. I'm sorry.
These were 18, 19-year-old kids who went off and experienced stuff that most of us cannot even imagine. A lot of these guys will admit, I spent the whole time being afraid. And now to step back and realize that they actually saved the world. That much of the world lives in freedom because of what they did.
Lacking audio in here today, so.
It wasn't for you guys, not just the world, but my countrymen, my family, and I would not be free.
Well, this is typical honor flight. A large plane, 150 passengers. We load up onto 3 separate buses.
We're here today because my great uncle and his wife.
A lot of times families will gather in Washington, D.C. and be waiting on them to surprise the guys when we're there, because we can only take one guardian. But you know what? If 20 family members want to meet us there for that very special moment in time, you're welcome to come. So she's saying, here we're going to round the corner, and the World War II Memorial is on your left. And it's so funny. I feel like the bus is going to tip over because all of them are like kids on a field trip. They're all leaning over to look out and see it. And just the emotion that builds up and all. You know, we unload them, put them in the wheelchairs, those that need it. It's quite an ordeal.
Yeah, well, I'm Bob Dole, and my wife Elizabeth. We come out here a lot. We've got to let everybody know of the sacrifices made by that generation. And even though there are only 2 million of us left out of 16, they'll have children and grandchildren who'll come here for years.
Everywhere we go, they're treated like rock stars. There's groups of people everywhere we go. They line up and they cheer and they welcome them, encourage them. That's the street that we stop traffic on right there.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, he says.
He, an old man, 90 years old, though.
It was only right to make this. It's beautiful.
What do I feel? I feel very small. It's huge.
He said it's huge and he feels very small.
It was built to last a long time.
I think it's an honor that's long overdue for the veterans. I don't think any veterans get enough credit, and these guys are absolute heroes, and it makes me really proud to be there and share this with my grandpa.
That, in a nutshell, is the Honor Flight program. And again, I would encourage you to go out and share what you've learned today with anyone and everyone who will listen. Of course, we're looking for guardians to assist the veterans, especially the veterans themselves. Most of them don't know there's such a thing as Honor Flight. They wrote off the idea of ever going to see the memorial. 2004 is when it was opened. A couple years later, if they hadn't gone, they pretty well forgot about it. Some of them don't even know that there is a memorial. They never got that news. They weren't watching TV when it opened and so forth. But they certainly don't think that there's a group like us out there that's wanting to take them out to see it. We've got the money to do it. We've got the volunteers. Guardians actually pay their own way. We ask the Guardians to make a $450 donation that offsets their cost. That covers the planes, the buses, all the meals, a shirt, etc. We've got more Guardians lined up, strangers willing to pay good money to spend the day with one of these guys because they're heroes. So it's not a problem. We've got the vehicle to deliver this incredible experience. We need the veterans to sign up. We need the money to do it. If anybody wants to donate or knows somebody, we're always looking for that. But the main thing is just to get the word out there. Let the veterans know that this exists and that you can come, you can write letters that they'll open on the flight. You can come to the airport and clap and cheer as they come home. And we can all do that. If nothing else, you can at least come and join us there at the airport. And we'll end with, if you do, it'll be an experience that you'll never forget. It is one of the most emotional things you'll see, to see these guys, 90 years old, they're moving pretty slow, but they get there, and I'll be damned if I'm going to be in a wheelchair. They get up out and they march. They come walking through. It might have been the only time all day that they're going to get up. And of course, I'm terrified. I'm like ready to catch these guys. But they get up and they very proudly, with head held high, come marching back in. Johnny comes marching home. That's the final act of an incredible life. And they know that they were loved, you know, and how much it meant to them and all. And last thing I'll share with you, one of the pictures that we had earlier was of Doyle, Mr. Justin. He was the one going like this, smiling. We took that picture. That was on our first flight out of Indianapolis. He passed away 4 days after that picture was taken. And it's don't be sad, because he left knowing that he was loved, appreciated, and will never be forgotten. And he waited to take that flight. He was ready to go months prior, but he signed up, found out he was going to go, and then he waited. And he went. When he left a note, and he said, in lieu of flowers, I want people to make donations to the Honor Flight program. They did, and we were able to fly 2 other veterans in remembrance of him. And it sums up that generation and how special they are. His final act was to give a gift that you can't actually buy, that is so much more than a gift, to a complete stranger. Kind of like going to France and saving the world. You know, he never met those people. He didn't know where they were, but he went off and he did that. And to do that one final act of kindness like that, what an incredible thing. You know, and that just sums up who these guys are. It's just amazing people. There's never a dull moment. You know, every one of them, I see my grandfather in, every single one of them as I'm talking to them. Their stories are just incredible, every one of them. Whether they were on Iwo Jima or in Boston and never left. You know, it doesn't matter what they did, they were all important. Some of them say, oh, I didn't do anything, I don't deserve that. And they all tell me, I didn't do anything special. Well, somehow, you guys ended up saving the world. You know, you did something pretty special. Somebody had to have done something. I'm tired of hearing I didn't do anything, because they did, and they deserve this trip. So help get the word out there and share this with others, you know. Visit the website. We're on Facebook. If you're not from Indianapolis or from Evansville area, there's other hubs probably close by where you live. If you've got family in a different state, chances are they have an Honor Flight group near them. They could get involved. And again, you'll never forget the time that Johnny came marching home. When they all come back into the airport, it'll stick with you till you die. And it's so touching to see it. And it's the right thing to do. I mean, I've been to homecomings for our currently active troops coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm just as happy and cheer just as loud for them. But these guys had to wait 70 years to get that same treatment. So hope to see you on the curb. Hope to have you guys join us at the airport. So, are there any questions?
So are you a veteran yourself?
I'm not a veteran myself. No, ma'am. Nope. I just patriotic person that loves my grandpa. I've had uncles that served in Vietnam. I've got a brother that just got back from Iraq. Didn't actually serve myself, but I'm self-employed and no logistics. You can kind of manage people, so just put this together because somebody had to. You know, somebody should have done that. And it's like I say, I'm not special. There's hundreds of us doing the same thing across the country. We're all kind of on our own. You know, there is an Honor Flight network that has some loose guidelines. They'll give you kind of a rule book to follow, but basically you're on your own. If you can get them there safely and quickly, please do. You know, here's some ideas. When you get there, you need to feed these guys. Here's a list of lunch options. So they give you some shortcuts like that, but basically we're kind of do our thing. We obviously involve a lot of different veteran organizations, the VFW Post, the American Legion, Indiana Patriot Guard will be there holding the flag line. The American Legion Riders are there with their flags. ROTC can come in and help push the guys through the parade route in the wheelchairs. You know, Girl Scouts will be there to serve coffee the morning of. I mean, it involves the entire community. There's lots of people that come together to make this possible. And it's a beautiful thing when you see the whole thing, when it's all said and done, all bundled up. It's certainly not me. It is an American thing. We all own this. And when a community like Evansville grabs a hold of it, special things happen. You know, there'll be kids from every school in town writing letters next month. Every school will be sending letters in. You know, so it involves everybody.
Can we donate online? Is there a mechanism?
Yes, there is. Yep, IndyHonorFlight.org is the website, and there's a tab up there that says donate. So you certainly can do that. We are a true 501c3 nonprofit. Our tax return was done, and I can't speak for all of the hubs. I can tell you with us, our tax return was done recently, and it showed that 98.4% of all funds went directly towards veteran travel. The other remaining percent was postage to send out the invitations for the flight, and the books that we print up to give them as a gift afterwards. That's not veteran travel, so it didn't count, but rest assured, every dime goes directly towards the veterans. I don't get paid. I don't turn in mileage. Nobody does in the organization that we run. It's not true for everyone, because I will admit it's a full-time job, you know. But I'm very fortunate, and I can do something that matters now instead of work. So, but yes, we would love any donations because it all goes to a very good cause. Any other questions? No?
Thank you so much.
Certainly. Thank you for having me and listening. Appreciate it.
Thanks